Morning Majority on 630 WMAL.
8:07 on a Friday morning. This is the Morning Majority. Brian Neiman, Mary Walter, KT McFarland, and there's an actual pig apparently running around our building this morning. I have not seen this pig, but apparently there's a pig running around the building.
Well, KT and I went on a little excursion.
And did you find the pig?
Well, KT was not interested in finding the pig. There was a lot of apathy on KT's part.
Rightfully
But you know, it was like a class trip. And the pig has apparently left the building.
Oh, the pig has
Yes,
left the
it was
building.
very anticlimactic.
You just never know with the FM kids on the other side of the building what will show up. Sometimes they're strippers, sometimes they're pigs. David Brooks joins us now. How about that for an introduction?
How are you going to segue into David Brooks?
Poor David. He'll never come back on the show ever again. Op-ed columnist in the New York Times, author of the new book, The Social Animal. Hey, there you go, The Social Animal. The Hidden Sources of Love, Character, and Achievement. Good morning, David, and I'm sorry for that.
I'm a kosher pig. Was it a friendly pig, a social pig?
I don't know, but I have to ask you, I don't know if you get in the New York Times building all that often, but my guess is there aren't any porkers running around the New York Times building.
Not in the building. Only on the street.
We're just lambs being led to slaughter.
That's right. I have to ask you, I've always wanted this for you. Democrats give you heat because you're a Republican, and conservatives give you heat because you're not enough of a Republican. Does that ever bother you?
It used to. You know, the first 6 months on the job, I got 290,000 emails, and the essential message of them was, Paul Krugman, a liberal columnist, is great, and you stink. So I'd never been hated on a mass scale before, but now I'm used to it. My job is to start arguments, so that's fine.
How much influence do you think right now that the Tea Party has on the Republican Party?
They have some. My basic line on the Tea Party is they use Abby Hoffman means to achieve Norman Rockwell ends. So sometimes they're sort of loud, but I think they're trying to create a traditional America that many people would recognize. And I think they have some influence, but, you know, as they get into government and as they see the choices that actually face us, I think the people I've met who are sort of Tea Party Republicans have said, okay, we gotta be a little more flexible than we thought we did.
All right. When it comes to the budget battle that we're seeing right now, do you think Republicans are going to essentially force the president to make drastic cuts? Will they say, you know what, we're done? Eric Cantor came out the other day and said, we're done with just kicking this down the road. We're done with 3 weeks, no government shutdown. The next time we have this, we're either going to pass the budget or we're going to have the government shut down. Are they serious about that?
Yeah, I don't think they want the government to shut down. One of the crucial things there is, what do the polls show? And the polls show both parties would suffer equally if the government shut down. So both parties have an incentive to make sure it doesn't happen. And I think what they're going to do is they're going to have some messy compromise that satisfies no one, but they're going to say, hey, let's hold an election about this. We'll have a 2012 election, and we'll figure out what we really want the role of government to be.
Your book, the Social Animal, it follows a couple, Harold and Erica, and they're a fictional couple, but they're a composite of Americans. And you take them into their adulthood. They start in high school. Is this your view of American adulthood currently? Because you look at Americans now, and it takes them 6 years to get through a 4-year degree. Right. You've got kids never leaving home. Their parents still dependent on their parents for a long time. Was that the point of this? Is to kind of examine America's version of adulthood? Yeah,
well, it's to examine how we live now. And one of the great things that's happening is that we're learning so much more about what's going on deep inside our minds. And some of that is very clever. So if you want to have a tough time making a decision, flip a coin. But then don't go by what the coin flip tells you. Go by your emotional reaction to the coin flip.
But that's what our politicians do. We know what we need to do to fix the budget, but we don't want to.
Well, but if you go by the coin flip, your inner mind is sort of made up its mind. It's just letting you know what it thinks. And one of the things we're learning is things that are going on deep down inside are kind of impressive. And we should be... My problem with politics is that when they do use their emotions, they're stupid, but often they don't use their emotions at all. And we have this highly rational system that ignores really the most important parts of life.
David, this is KT McFarland. You're somebody who is an observer of the scene. You've obviously written a book about how the brain works or doesn't work. Do you think that Americans, or any human being, is going to vote against their self-interest? In other words, we now have a situation in Washington where you got to cut something. Are you going to cut Social Security benefits? Are you going to cut defense? Are you going to cut somebody's retirement plan? Are you going to defund somebody's, Medicaid or Medicare plan? And are you going to expect people to vote against their pocketbook interests for the greater good? I mean, are we hardwired to do that, or in the end of the day, is democracy doomed?
We're social creatures. We owe a lot to each other and to ourselves, and we owe a lot to our country. And I think if you have a sense that we can't let our country survive, there are people right now in Afghanistan risking their lives. Are we at home really not going to be willing to adjust an adjustment to our cost of living allowance?
But will we elect somebody who says that to us?
Well, I think if people have a sense that we're all going to suffer equally, that everyone's going to take a hit, and B, we're going to sacrifice now for a greater future down the road, and
right.
especially for our future. I think Americans are willing to answer that call if they can trust the people who are in office. And right now they don't have that trust. They think if they're talking about cuts, but I'm going to be the one
right.
getting a chance.
And do you think, is there anybody on the scene that gives that kind of an example of somebody who can convince people to vote for delayed self-gratification?
When I look at around the states, I look at some governors, and I see governors who have been able to do that. Mitch Daniels in Indiana, Governor Chris Christie in New Jersey, even Jerry Brown in California is beginning to ask for some of those cuts. And all around the states, Democrats and Republicans, Andrew Cuomo in New York, they're asking for it. In some states, people are saying, hey, I don't like it, this stinks, but we've got to do it for our future.
When you talked about emotion and listening to your emotion, I was thinking, though, that the President of the United States doesn't show a lot of emotion. No drama Obama is his nickname. Some people have even said that he's bloodless. Is that a positive for him, or is that by bloodless I mean that he doesn't see doesn't have a lot of emotion, and a lot of people think that's a good thing. He doesn't feel
your pain.
He doesn't feel your pain, but some people think that's a good thing because he can take himself away from that. But how do you feel on that when the President and his emotion?
Yeah, I think he does feel emotion. He doesn't show it as much as, say, Bill Clinton, who maybe went a little off on the other side. But, one of the things I would observe about President Obama, and this is my armchair psychologizing, but I've covered him quite closely for several years, he's got many different personalities, and that's true of all of us. We all have different selves that come out in different situations. And he has so many. He's a very complicated person because of his diverse background. I think the strength is he's always looking at himself. He can adjust very well because he can see himself from a distance. But the downside, I think, is he's rarely all in. He's rarely, okay, I'm doing this, I'm all in.
Yeah, compared to say somebody like Reagan, where you knew he was all in.
Right, and so we all have the strengths of our vices. So we all have traits, and there are good sides to those traits and bad sides.
All right, David, thanks for coming on the show, and good luck with the book. The book is called The Social Animal: The Hidden Sources of Love, Character, and Achievement. It was great to have you on. Hope to have you on sometime down the road.
Great.